Okay, moving on to the bantamweight title, and there's a lot going on in this one, okay? Henry Cejudo originally slated to fight Jose Aldo. All this COVID shit happens. Dominick Cruz steps in, and you got to think that Dominick Cruz is able to step into this spot because of a lack of a clear number one contender. He's the most notable name in the division. TJ Dillashaw's out with all the serving his suspension. And then you got like Petr Yan, Aljamain Sterling, and Corey Sandhagen sitting in the wings. And those are like, in my opinion, I say this all the time, those are the top three fighters at 135 right now outside of Cejudo. Cruz, though, consensus greatest bantamweight of all time, steps in, takes the fight, and after the longest layoff of his career, finally gets a chance to regain his title. And he's fighting Henry Cejudo, a guy who was down at flyweight, so he's thinking like maybe I have a size advantage in this. I've fought my whole career here. I know what it feels like to be here, and this is only Henry's like second or third fight here. I think second fight here. So you would think that from that angle, things would be in his favor a little bit. But Henry Cejudo, activity, explosiveness, the fact that he is, the confidence that he's riding, the fact that he's already dethroned somebody like TJ Dillashaw, and not dethroned him as in he didn't take the 135-pound title from him, but knocked him out, and then Marlon Moraes as well. So you got to think that like Henry Cejudo is not going to be so concerned about like knockout power from Dominick Cruz after fighting a guy like Moraes. Anyway, Henry Cejudo comes in with a fucking brilliant game plan, and he's just attacking the legs every time Dominick Cruz comes in on something, going after the legs constantly and really beating him up and sliding in and out of range really nicely. Like every time that Cruz would throw stuff, it seemed like Cruz's leg kicks were all missing. He was whiffing on all of them. Cruz was finding moments of success, and there were moments where Cruz was shooting for takedowns and Henry was sprawling hard, and you could kind of see, especially towards the end of the first round, that Cruz was looking to follow those takedowns up with punches. Like he was using those to set Cejudo up to come over top of something. And I think that in the second round, you got to see a little bit more success from Dominick Cruz, but there was never really a moment in the fight, and maybe this is just the nature of Dominick Cruz's fighting style. There was never really a moment in the fight where I felt like Cruz was in control. It felt like Henry had control of the situation all the time, right? Now Cruz starts finding a little more success, and we get to the end of the second round, and Henry times a fucking beautiful knee. I mean, the timing on it was great. Dominick Cruz came in with his head down, and Cejudo fucking hit him with it, and it obviously stunned him. And then right as looks like he's about to recover, Cejudo comes flying in and cracks Cruz with another right hand. And then he hits him with a slew of shots. I think I counted, including the kick. Including the knee that initially dropped Cruz. There were like 14 strikes that I counted that weren't answered for. And also, this is tough because personally, and I know that this is a little bit of maybe a brutal way of viewing a fight. Now, the next one we're going to talk about is a little bit different, but I believe in finality. And I know that that's a tough, it's a tough line to play with when you're considering fighter safety. But, it wasn't like Cruz had gotten battered over the course of 5 rounds like Justin Gaethje did to Tony Ferguson or like Max Holloway did to Brian Ortega. Cruz got rocked, and he was trying to recover. And you've seen guys get rocked and recover before. I'm not necessarily criticizing Keith Peterson. It's a tough situation to be in, and when you look at the right hand from Cejudo, I mean, and also the way that Cruz was getting up, he was still allowing strikes to get thrown at his face. Like both of his hands were on the ground where maybe he should have been doing this and at least showing that he was covering up. I think that might have been what Keith Peterson's looking for. You got to remember in a moment like that, Keith Peterson is trying to consider a lot of different variables. He's trying to consider okay, I have an Olympic caliber wrestler swarming a guy. He just hit him with a big knee. Cruz was clearly rocked. He got cracked with another right hand, and now he's not covering his head up, and he's working his way back to his feet, but is he just in autopilot mode? What's going on? Why isn't he answering? And then he stops it. But the problem is he stops it as Cruz is getting his base back underneath him and is standing up. It's a tough spot to be in if you're Keith Peterson because that looks like it should be the end of the fight. And this is my personal opinion. If I was judging it, I would have let it go. I would have let it. I would have saw what. Now, if he gets dropped again after standing up, I would have maybe called it then. But I personally, I can't even say that because I'm not in there and I've never fucking reffed the fight. It's not fair for me to say that I would actually do it, right? But you know what I mean. look, having the advantage of hindsight and everything, looking at it, I don't think that it should have been stopped, is what I should say. I think that you could have let it continue, and I think that Cruz should have had more of an opportunity to recover, especially it's hard to be subjective. You can't be. And Cruz had a problem with this after the fight, but you got to consider that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Cruz, and like you're a couple seconds. That stuff isn't supposed to matter. The ref is just supposed to end it, but like, man, I don't know. It's tough.